So, Delia, we have talked before about the Gallup research that this idea that the best acquisition partners are not people who think exactly like us, but people who complement us. So, today we want to talk about that a little bit deeper. Most buyers think this is kind of a question of skills, someone who knows operations or who has capital or who has experience. But, Delia, why is that the wrong place to start when we're trying to find a business partner?
Yeah, I think skills and talking about skills is the wrong place to start because skills can be hired and developed. What matters more is the wiring of a person, how someone has is naturally built, what energizes them, what where they create momentum, what they're really good at. A visionary is a very different person from an operations person. And the wiring tends to be more fixed, and it's something we're born with. And the skills are built on those natural strengths and natural tendencies we've been created with. So when we get the wiring wrong, no amount of competence is going to smooth out the friction in our partnerships. That's why skills is what people use and refer to, but I think wiring is the more important aspect, and the skills are just really built on that. But then there's also different sides to this coin. There's a second question that a lot of people skip entirely when it comes to building a business, finding a partner. And that is whether the person knows themselves well enough to be a reliable partner when things get hard. So you have strengths on one side, and then you have what I would call pressure, fitness, or emotional maturity on the other. If the person doesn't have the ability to deal with hardships and challenges well, it's going to be very difficult to handle this first acquisition because any acquisition, especially the first couple of acquisitions, will test both of you in ways you never imagined. It's something new. So that's why there are these two questions.
Yeah, so even before we get to skills, there's these two questions. Can you kind of break those down a little more for us?
Yeah, I think it will be helpful to start with an analogy. Think about starting a fire. If you have dry wood and a fire starter, what we would call an accelerant, the fire catches, spreads, it builds on itself. But if you ever try to do make a fire at a campsite, you know that if you don't have either one of those, it's very difficult. If you have wet wood, not only will the wet wood slow down your fire, or sometimes you cannot even start the fire with wet wood. The wood also pulls the heat from the other parts. It produces smoke. It can kill the whole fire. And wet wood is not bad wood. It's just wood in the wrong condition for what you're trying to do. So when we think of acquisitions, a partner whose natural wiring covers the ground your own natural doesn't cover, that's dry wood. And the whole system accelerates when you put two people together who complement their natural wirings. A partner whose orientation, natural strength, natural tendency runs thin in the same places that yours do, that's what would. And when you both have those skill sets and there's so many big gaps in the partnership, then you create drag in the relationship. You don't accelerate the work you do together. What most people miss is that dry wood can be wet on the inside.
Mm.
So the natural strength, right, refers almost to the dry wood on the outside. The inner emotional health or pressure fitness of the person is how they look on the inside. Someone can be wired exactly right for the partnership, but still not be ready for an acquisition. It can sound like abstract, but it's not. We'll talk about some things to look for. Does that make a bit more sense?
Yeah, yeah. So when you say wiring, can you just kind of go into that a little more? Like, what does that mean in practice when you're working with somebody? What does that look like?
Yeah, I'll use my example. Maybe this helps. Fit refers to the wiring, and it's what energizes something versus what depletes them. It's not just what they're capable of, because again, all of us can pick up on a lot of skills, and business owners do tend to wear a lot of hats, can learn things quickly. But what really energizes you? Compliance paperwork drains me. Admin work, recurring operational things really are very draining to me and makes it really hard for me to continue to grow that type of business if I have to do those tasks. But then give me complex issues, help give me the task of building the vision for what we're building, and that keeps me up at night, and I'm excited, and I wake up excited about it. So my natural acceleration zones is where I create momentum almost effortlessly. Are things like deal structuring, understanding what's driving a seller, finding financing, and coming up with structures that are enticing to other people who want to invest in our businesses, asking questions that open up conversations, designing experiments that are going to grow our businesses. So that's, they're two sides of the coin. Things that drain me and things that energize me, that accelerate what I'm doing. So that's what the fit or the wiring refers to.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. I think we often think of, okay, there's a big picture, visionary type personality, and then a detailed, oriented systems person. Is there just those two types of people that you, in your experience, that you think we're looking
Yeah,
for?
so it's when it comes to any type of business situation, we tend to think in black and white frameworks or two type systems, but it's probably more like three or four. However, the three that are probably essential are the big picture person, the systems person, and then the EQ person, relational person. Those people tend to do more with sales and maybe hiring. Big picture person, visions and where we're going and designing experiments. That's essential in the business. Systems person deals with operations. So developing the business is one big picture person, system person, the operation person, relational person, more like sales, marketing, and maybe team management. Those three really matter. Putting them together builds a really clear picture. Not You don't have to have a partner you don't have to have a partner in each one of those areas. But if you want to make things easier, which is why we're talking about partnership readiness, you need to make sure you find a partner who has what you are lacking. You don't want to create a drag force. You don't want to slow yourself down and choose the wrong person. So that's why we're talking about these things. So in the two things, the fit, right? We're talking about fit, and then we're talking about fire as the analogy makes a lot of sense. What's going to really create a bigger fire? What's going to really push both of you? What's going to accelerate the growth in the business?
So the fit question is, does their natural wiring cover the areas that we aren't as strong in? And then the fire side, what are we looking for when in that quadrant? What are we thinking there?
Yeah, when I think of pressure fitness, when I think of fire, if you use a phrasing that makes more sense to people, it's the pressure fitness. It's something you develop, the ability to sustain, to work under pressure, the ability to respond to pressure well. And a leader and a business owner has to have that ability. Other people can think of it as emotional maturity, the ability to understand yourself and understand other people. Now, no one has arrived there, right? It's something that we grow in. But part of this emotional maturity, I guess there are a couple of things that matter. One is this person open to growing, right? It's a pathway. Is this person open to growing? And then the second part is this person humble, meaning they can receive feedback. They don't make the problem bigger than the person. They continue to look for solutions, and they're interested in protecting the relationship rather than not looking bad in the eyes of their team or the partner. So those are the two aspects that I have in mind that have proven very essential. Another way to think about it is a self-aware person that is continuously working on themselves. So that's another way, right? So you have the strength, wiring, and fitness that makes a lot of sense. It's easy for people to understand. It's the pressure fitness, emotional maturity, being self-aware in a way that helps the business grow is where people kind of struggle. But if the goal is to build a business that grows, if the goal is to build a business that it's adventurous, it's fun, then you need both. And that's the quadrant we want to be under, if you
Yeah.
think in terms of quadrants.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But could you explain, do you have any examples of this? Like, what does this look like in practice, like in your businesses, as you've been figuring this out?
There were so many stories that came to mind as I thought about these concepts over the last few weeks. When something is not working and you feel attacked because you came up with the idea as a business owner, and let's assume this isn't a partnership, you feel attacked, you're going to try to defend the system or the idea you came out with, and you're going to spend more time on it. You're going to lose more time, you're going to lose more money, and you're not going to find the solution. But if you are a self-aware person who is growth oriented and you are relationally grounded, then you are going to accept feedback and you're going to make changes faster. In terms of our businesses, I have seen many instances. I thought of many instances where we lost quite a bit of money because we took too long to make a decision, and it was tied to our inner wiring and natural wiring that kept us from making the decision. And again, no one is perfect. You will make mistakes. The idea is to learn from those and not repeat the same mistakes. So we kept the person too long on the team because I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt, and it takes me a while to fire people. Now I've become much faster at firing the wrong people on our teams because as a leader, my role is to build a healthy work environment where people can succeed, where people can do their best work. If you have a person, they do not fulfill the responsibilities of their role, they're going to drag the whole team. So I always, in the beginning when we started, when I hire people, I would give people too long to figure things out, rather than be very clear in the expectations and then have a clear timeline to make decisions. So that was a natural tendency to overthink it and to give people too long. So it can cost you a lot of time and a lot of money. It can cause a lot of frustration. I can think of a lot of examples, but those are the types of things that are going to happen. Now, I have noticed personally in conversations with partners or employees that the more open and the more humble I am about any ideas I bring to the table, the faster we get to a solution that's actually beneficial for the team. In our team, when we had people make mistakes that lost us hundreds or thousands of dollars, we didn't attack the person. We really focused on why did we not catch it, or what part of our process allowed us to make this mistake. So we focused on learning from it, and we focused on redesigning the system or the operations in such a way that we would avoid these mistakes. So we build a culture, a type of culture where mistakes are totally acceptable, but what is not acceptable is not learning from the mistakes. So I know those are kind of random examples. Um, Coming back to the fit and fire, right? When it comes to the inner emotional maturity of the person, how you respond to situations is clearly tied to it. And any business owner who acquires businesses is going to have challenges and pressures, and you have to partner with someone who can handle those types of conversations.
Yeah. So as I think of all those things, I kind of think of someone who's perfect in all these different categories. And nobody is perfect. Nobody's arrived with all the things. So even if they've, have some characteristics of all these different things, there's still going to be some sort of a gap. How do you deal with that? How close do they need to be to this perfect ideal? Does that make sense? When you're
Yeah,
entering into a partnership, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is a little bit subjective, right, in how we answer. Uh, but nobody has arrived. Nobody is perfect. So in this journey, is the person the type of person that hears feedback and changes? It matters how they respond to feedback. However, again, if you think of complementary skills or complementary strengths, and then emotional maturity or pressure fitness. Um, in either one of those cases, we have the tendency to respond in a negative way. So our weaknesses are tied to our strengths.
Yeah.
There, we can think of people in terms of three types: thinkers, doers, and intuitive people or feelers. The thinkers are going to feel more offended or will have a bigger issue in responding well to ideas and so what I call knowledge humility. When it comes to their level of knowledge on the problem, they might struggle to show humility to respond well. When it comes to doers, they will feel offended or attacked if you talk about what they've done. For the intuitive people, they might feel attacked and not respond well to how they've read a situation, and maybe that led to a deal being lost. So it's important to know what that means. What are the consequences of the fact that we're not perfect? And where do we struggle the most? So it's important, yeah, to start identifying that one or two things that would make it really hard for us to stay in the relationship and respond well. That's the whole purpose of this, because yes, we all have much to learn.
Yeah.
And yeah, another way to, I mean, a lot of people use the word humble to refer to some of this stuff, but humble about what? Humble about my thinking, humble about my doing, humble about my intuitive assessment of the situation.
Yeah, no, that is a great thing to be aware of as you're entering into this relationship. So the fire question just not isn't even about just where they're at on that quadrant, but it's thinking about for themselves and for you, noticing where you're going to get stuck. This thinking, doing, or intuitive. So that's a great characteristic of that. So what do you think is your characteristic gap that you have when you're thinking of these different type of partner skills?
Yeah, I would say it deals with my ideas and the systems I build, the experiments I design, um, because I'm more of a visionary thinking person rather than a doer per se. So I have noticed in conversations with people that when someone questions the system or the idea I present, it's much easier for me to react to it and want to defend it. Rather than if they tell me this wasn't done right, it's easy for me to acknowledge, yeah, that was not done right. Let's do it better next time. So that's my issue. And I've noticed in conversations, because a self-aware person kind of notices what goes on the inside. As I've spent years trying to develop this, I noticed how in conversations I would be confused or try to want to defend, and that's usually a sign that I need to calm down and listen to the person. So it's much easier to do if you start paying attention to these things. But we all learn by doing, in a sense. Like we have to be in relationships. We have to acquire business and go through these things if we want to learn about some of the stuff. And there are a lot of unknowns, things that we don't know about ourselves that will become clearer when we buy a business. That's why we talk about partnerships. It is a much easier process if you find the right person. And so that's kind of where I want to leave people.
Yeah, so can we just recap really quick? Like when you're sitting across from someone who's a potential partner, what are those two questions again that you're kind of running in the back of your mind?
Yeah, so for me, it's very simple. I am not a great operational person, so I tend to partner with operational people. I have no problem thinking about the vision. So the first thing is the strength wiring. Who is that? The fit question. Do we fit together do we have complementary skills and strengths, right? And the skills kind of build on the strengths. Someone who's a visionary, really great at ideas and thinking about systems, is probably not great at running the systems. Right? That's the first side. On the other side, we're talking about pressure fitness, emotional maturity, um, the gaps we have in our emotional maturity, on this pathway, which is tied to our strengths, most of the stuff. So emotional maturity, if you want to simplify it, is just the ability to respond to pressure well. You are developing the skills in the brain skills and the habits to respond well to, if you become angry about a situation, if you lose your cool, how do you address it? If you just ignore it, it's not going to get solved. How do you address it? How do you deal with mistakes, with failures? Can you deal with anxiety? So that falls under the emotional maturity. When I summarize it earlier, I talked about three things: being self-aware, you have
Mhm.
to know yourself. Being growth-minded is a person who is humble, open to learn. All of us have much learning to do. And being relationally grounded, meaning people are more important than problems. Problems are easy to solve, but losing people and breaking the relationship and damaging the relationship would take months and years longer to fix. So that's why I tend to think in terms of the three things: self-aware, growth-minded, and relationally grounded.
Yeah. So what do you say? It almost feels like, oh, this is going to be a little bit of a daunting task to find this great business partner. And maybe the business person who's actively looking to buy a business right now, they're thinking, man, maybe I should just go it alone. So what would be the bottom line that you would say to somebody who's, considering looking for a business partner or just going at it solo? What would you have, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I bought the businesses and I've been involved in quite a few things now, in terms of starting businesses, buying businesses. All my partners have said at one point or another, I don't think I could have done this by myself. Solo buying puts all the risk in your hands. It feels like the easier task, but it's not. You have so much more to lose. But a great partner, a good partner, restructures that risk, and it can really reduce the risk. It can make the whole process easier, whether it's the process of finding the business or running the business afterwards. It's very hard to put into words the impact of having the right partner. That's why we've talked many times in other videos and in our school community. We talk about how to find the right partner, and we offer more worksheets and other types of tools to help people in this process. It feels hard, but usually those things that feel hard open the door to much better pathways. So I'd say consider it because it's going to make your life easier.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, thanks so much. That concludes our topic today. But coming up, we're going to have a dedicated video on the drag force map that we mentioned earlier, how to build yours as you're searching for your partner, and then another one on how to vet for the fire markers in a real conversation. So, Delia, where can people go to find more info?
Yeah, we have the school community, Biz Buying Lab. That's where we're sharing a lot more resources that you can use to come up with answers to these questions. So join us, school.com/biz buying lab.